It's a very extraordinary scene for those who don't understand. After taking the reins from boss Don Kirshner, America's favorite TV band, the Monkees, are riding high. It's the summer of 1967 and they're arguably the biggest pop group in the country. They allegedly sold more records than the Beatles and the Rolling Stones that year. But less than a year into their artistic freedom, things are starting to look dicey. Their contempt for the scripts being passed down is starting to show. Their performances are getting sarcastic, even self-aware. And it's freaking the network out. If NBC loses their golden boys, they lose a lot of money. Like, a lot of money. But there's still time for a potentially game-changing gig. The first Monkees movie. Producer Bob Rafelson saw what A Hard Day's Night did for the Beatles, and after all, he helped form the Monkees in hopes they'd be the American Beatles. They were not the American Beatles. They were, in fact, the Monkees. Bob toyed with the idea of a Monkee movie since the group's inception, but the ball didn't start rolling until an aspiring writer named Jack Nicholson joined the Monkees' entourage. This is the story of an album that came from a film that broke a boy band in just over 80 minutes. Hold on. What are you doing?
Getting us out of here, man! We've made 100 videos in this pink box. I'll pull the end of this, and then we'll lower ourselves to the ground!
B-roll, Abby. We're on the first floor.
Oh. Right. Then we'll lower ourselves to the roof!
Hi, I'm Abby. I have a lot of records, and this is the...
Hey! Those are my sheets.
And this is the Vinyl Monday 100th episode special! So welcome back, or welcome if this is your first time here. Vinyl Monday is the who, what, when, where, why, and how do I feel about classic albums in my collection. If deep dives aren't your thing, don't worry. I also do Vinyl Monday in 60 seconds here on my channel, over on my Instagram, as well as TikTok. Today we celebrate a major milestone in this channel's history, 100 episodes of my flagship series, Vinyl Monday. To drive home just how big of a deal this is, here is a list of shows Vinyl Monday somehow has more episodes than: Downton Abbey, Sons of Anarchy, Mad Men, The Sopranos, Breaking Bad, Hannah Montana, Courage the Cowardly Dog, Full Metal Alchemist for you weebs out there, Prison Break, Dexter, Entourage, Avatar: The Last Airbender, the original run of iCarly, Veronica Mars, the original Star Trek, and the Monkees. However, the Monkees and several other shows on this list have one thing that Vinyl Monday does not, and that is a film. Wait, I actually did that. A feature-length film with a theater run upon original release. To celebrate Vinyl Monday somehow outlasting some of the greatest television shows of all time, I will be covering the soundtrack and saga of one of the weirdest films of the whole of the 1960s. This week's album, your 100th Vinyl Monday album, is The Monkees' Head. Congrats to those who guessed this one. Remember, if you want to play along, all you gotta do is check out my community tab. That's where I post my hints to what next week's album is gonna be. I host polls where sometimes you get to pick what's on the series. I make announcements when I'm places that aren't here. You can find all of that on my channel. Alright, let's take the plastic off. Remember when I wound up with 4 copies of The Who sell out in a period of 3 days? Yeah, a similar thing happened with Head. I went to my P.O. box one fine morn and cracked open a box of hand-picked albums from one of you viewers and neighbors to the north. This was a real eclectic bunch. There was Kraftwerk, Elvis Costello, and a Canadian copy of Head from 1968. For reasons we'll get into very soon, I'm pretty sure this was a second run. I kid you not, the very same day I receive a thank you gift from Chris McGovern for appearing on their Gen X Muse podcast twice, and wouldn't you know it, that gift was a copy of Head. B-roll Abby has put editing Abby's sheets down, so she'll be happy to show you this one. It's the 2019 Rhino Records run on silver vinyl, pressed as part of Rhino's Summer 69 series. A little odd, seeing as Head was notably released in 1968, but I won't argue with it. Across all of the articles, books, and cuts of the film I've consulted, I cannot for the life of me find a credit for who designed the cover of Head. But I can tell you what the design is supposed to represent. The repeating Monkees text makes a black box around the album title, reminiscent of the black box in the film. The text is printed on silver, so when the listener holds up the jacket, they will see their own Head. I can also tell you why this cover caused so many problems. Well, not this cover, the original silver Mylar film cover. Since the Mylar made the jackets ever so slightly thicker than a normal cardboard jacket, they would get jammed in the printing presses. This was the alternate cover on silver foil. The back cover remained the same, a high-contrast black and white photograph of all four Monkees with select film and album credits. I know, Beatles this, Beatles that, but this looks a hell of a lot like the back cover of Revolver. The soundtrack of Head includes performances by the Monkees. That's Davy Jones on lead vocals for Daddy's Song and backing vocals for Porpoise Song, Mickey Dolenz on lead vocals for Porpoise Song Can You Dig It and As We Go Along, Peter Tork on lead vocals for Do I Have to Do This All Over Again and guitar, and Mike Nesmith on lead vocals, guitar, and organ for Circle Sky, and additional guitar work on Daddy's Song. Arrangements are provided by Jack Nitzsche, Shorty Rogers, and Ken Thorne, with a whole army of session musicians to fill in the rest. Special guests include Leon Russell on keys for Porpoise Song, with Doug Lubon, session bassist for The Doors. Playing guitar on As We Go Along, we have Ry Cooder and Neil Young. Stephen Stills and Dewey Martin of Buffalo Springfield play guitar and drums respectively on Do I Have to Do This All Over Again. And allegedly, we have Buddy Miles on drums for Can You Dig It, though this is far-fetched. All tracks were produced by the Monkees, except for Porpoise Song, recorded under the direction of Jerry Goffin. The Head soundtrack was coordinated, produced by Jack Nicholson with the Monkees. I have not gotten to say this in months. Roll the original Vinyl Monday transition bumper Circle Sky by the Monkees! Okay, so there is a lot to talk about today. Talking about a film soundtrack, easy enough. I've done it a couple times before, but how do we talk about how a film soundtrack complements the narrative when the film, by all accounts, is entirely plotless? In all honesty, guys, we are just gonna make this up as we go along. Similar to how I tackled the Get Back, Let It Be, Get Back conundrum, I'll spend this chapter of the video detailing how Head came to be. And, likewise, Head. I'll cover Head's release and reception, then give my review, and finally review Head the album. From this point forth, when I say Head, I'm talking about this. When I say Head the album, I'm talking about this. So hold on to your wool hats and roll up your little red double-breasted sleeves as we get elbow deep into this mess. Part 1. However did they make a movie of Head? Like the production of Yellow Submarine ran in tandem with like 3 major Beatles projects, production on Head overlaps with several significant points in Monkee history. Keep in mind that while the guys are working on this, The Birds, the Bees, and the Monkees is released, the second and final season of the show airs, and Mike releases his Wichita Train Whistle Sings album. According to Mickey Dolenz, producer Bob Raffleson brought Jack Nicholson around for the first time. He turned up on the set of the show and was basically like, "Hey guys, this is Jack. He wants to be a writer. He's gonna work work on your movie. According to Jack, he knew nothing about the Monkees at this time. He just wanted to be a director. Jack and Bob have a meeting with Bert Schneider. In this meeting, Jack says he's got 2 ideas for the movie. Quote, "One of them I can guarantee you will be as big a hit as A Hard Day's Night. And with equal certainty, the other one I can guarantee you won't make a nickel." Bert says, quote, "I want the second one." So it's decided Raybert Productions will oversee a movie musical starring the Monkees, with Bob serving as director and co-writer with Jack. On November 22nd, 1967, after the Monkees wrap filming on the Christmas special, they trek out to Ojai, California with Jack and Bob to brainstorm ideas for the movie. Through December and January of '68, Jack and Bob get to working on the script while the Monkees work on the music. The first song written for the film is Circle Sky by Mike. The first draft of the script is completed with working title changes. January brings extensive revisions, including adding Mickey's Coke machine scene, and a scene where the Monkees go to Japan and meet Godzilla. We're off to a great start. There's a motorcycle plotline which will be repurposed for Easy Rider. Mike's Magnolia Sims is swapped out for Daddy's Song, written by a then relatively unknown musician, Harry Nilsson. It was Mike's idea to have the execution scene shown in the film. Quote, "I remember seeing it and taking it up with Bob and Bert and being like, how can we put this in there? And I remember being profoundly disturbed by it. It was also Mike's responsibility to contact Victor Mature about being in the film. Production was, quote, too intimidated by him to do it themselves." January also brings both Peter Tork compositions. First, Do I Have to Do This All Over Again? He will spend the next month recording, re-recording, and re-re-recording the damn thing. Conversely, it takes him all of a few days to knock out Can You Dig It? Jack and Bob forge a workable version of the script by January. There's a boxing match and scene with Davy playing the violin, references to the 1939 film Golden Boy, and an apartment scene with floating silver pillows meant to reference Andy Warhol's Silver Clouds. So we've sorted out the who and when pretty easily. The what is a lot harder to figure out. NME reported changes would be, quote, 100 minutes of sight gags, 11 songs, and 20 totally different plots. That's about the most concrete information they ever got. Bob was quite elusive about the whole thing. Quote, "What we're doing is not a comedy, but it's funny. It sounds campy, but it's the enemy of camp. It opens with one of the Monkees committing suicide. It's kind of a trip." The Monkees themselves were just as elusive, in part to build the hype, and partly because nobody knew what the hell it was about. It's interesting to see the guys' relative understanding of this thing evolve through quotes they give to the press. The LA Herald Examiner in March said, quote, "It seems that the directors and actors may be working from 2 different scripts." When the author asked Mike for clarification on what the hell the movie is, he replied with, quote, "The 4 of us are in the men's room. We open up a cabinet and see the head of Victor Mature. One of the biggest sequences in the movie takes place in Victor Mature's hair." Okay. Backstage at Top of the Pops in May, Mickey said this to Alan Smith of NME, quote, "There is really no plot. Part of the story concerns an itinerant parrot salesman in Florida who tries to get us to buy a warehouse, and it also involved square basketballs. Worth noting, neither of these plot points came to fruition." And after a press conference in Australia in September, Davy said this, quote, "It's about life, society, and the way 4 people try to get out of the clutches of the establishment. My way is to fight my way out, because I'm a fighter. Peter loves his way out because he's for love and peace. Mike cons his way out, and Mickey just goes along with anything. It's so very hard to explain. It's just about 4 ordinary people, and we play ourselves for the first time ever. After you've seen it, you'll understand why I can't really tell you about the film. It's a very involved, very complicated thing." Whatever the hell it's supposed to be, filming on Changes kicks off on February 15th, 1968. Well, it's supposed to. Davy, Mickey, and Mike strike for an advance on the film's profits, instead choosing to hop in the studio to work on more songs. Like 6 studios were used across the soundtrack's productions, so I don't know which one this was. Peter, loyal to Raybert Productions, is the only one left on set. This strike drives a deep wedge between production and the guys, and complicates things between Peter and the other 3. Day 1 is set for February 19th, for real this time. But in those 3 days, Jack and Bob discover that the name Changes is taken, so they have to title their film something else. The Monkey movie is now untitled, and reports to the press are made that it will take 30 to 40 days to film. When I tell you, this saga reads like a Monkees plot in and of itself. Ridiculous shit constantly befalls this film's production. For starters, according to an interview Bob gave to the New York Times, they decided on the title Untitled on the principle of why the hell not? And all of 24 hours after filming commences, for real this time, NBC releases their fall 1968 schedule. The Monkees are absent. Raybert negotiated for an 8-hour TV special in lieu of season 3. This was very obviously rejected. The bulk of filming Untitled took place at Bronson Canyon, the Columbia Lot, and Paramount Studios. Production took over a sewage plant for the factory scene. I guess it was the only thing that looked industrial enough for them. Desert scenes were shot in Palm Springs. There was a whole ass housing development just out of frame. The whole first day they're there is a bust as the army tank breaks down. There's 110 crew members on set that day, so yeah, this royally sucked. A few days later, they try again, but have to fight through 105-degree weather and a fucking sandstorm. Scenes for As We Go Along include Peter trekking through Alaska. Porpoise Song was half on a trampoline, half at Paradise Island in the Bahamas. Mickey just had to sink to the bottom and film with the mermaids until he literally couldn't hold his breath anymore. That would never fly today. Same with the special effects in the Swami sauna scene. They used insecticide? For the steam? They fucking gassed Peter Tork? According to him, quote, "It smelled funny." Among several oddball characters roped into Untitled is Frank freaking Zappa. Yes, the Frank Zappa extended cinematic universe overlaps with the Monkees. Lulu, who was called in the same day as Frank, described him as, quote, "really sweet and nice. I was really scared, but he's so lovely." Frank told Davy that the Monkees were the only group of that type that he liked. He's sweet. Isn't that strange? Mickey echoed the sentiment that Frank was a really cool guy. Quote, "Frank was one of those people of our generation at that time who got us, who got what the Monkees were all about. A year or 2 later, Frank called me up and asked me to be the drummer for the Mothers of Invention. I was very flattered. Not sure I could have pulled it off, though. Either way, the record company wouldn't let me out of my contract." There was lots of nonsense with women happening, and not just the make-out scene in the beginning. Fun fact, that's Jack Nicholson's girlfriend at the time. Her name was Mimi. Mickey had a big fat crush on Annette Funicello at the time and told her so while filming. I don't know her reaction to this. And then there's Can You Dig It? The scene meant to be a teenage boy's fantasy. The boys were, in fact, acting like teenagers. Peter was too intimidated by the scantily clad dancers to make a move, but ladies' man Mike was like a kid in a candy store. He made some, quote, sleazeball comments to the girls, which he regret later on. In the Blu-ray commentary track, he said if he could send them all boxes of soap to make up for the things he said, he would. That's how bad they were. One of the stuntmen in the factory scene hit his head on the guardrail so hard he got a concussion. One of the set pieces in the birthday party scene came from Rosemary's baby, Davey throws production off by 2 whole weeks because he just decided to go to England on a whim. The crew is not happy about this. He's the guy most needed for reshoots. When he returns, the gang films what is essentially the last scene completed for the movie, Circle Sky. This would be the Monkees' last US appearance as a quartet in nearly 20 years. Filmed in front of an audience of 4,000 fans who all won tickets from a radio station contest, this gig was plagued by sound issues. Of the 4 takes of Circle Sky, none of them had usable vocals, so Mike had to go back into the studio to dub them over. The chaos does not end when filming does, nay nay. The wacky psychedelic color effect in Porpoise Song and Do I Have to Do This All Over Again is called solarization. This was a very expensive and time-consuming process that was not factored into the original budget. Why did they have to go through with the solarization process? Because one of the couples in Do I Have to Do This All Over Again just decided to be partially naked, and it was way too late in the process to reshoot it. At some point in July, the OG cut of Untitled is screened to a test audience of 100 people. It does not go over well. Bob seemed satisfied, though, saying it was, quote, just what he expected. Nevertheless, the decision is made to cut about 40 minutes from the film, giving us the 80-ish minute runtime we know today. By September of '68, the film was retitled one last time to Head. Insert the joke about the title here. It's pretty common knowledge at this point, so there's no need to rehash it. Various reshoots, edits, and the solarization process delay Head until the holiday season. The US theater release is scheduled for Thanksgiving, while the UK release is scheduled for Christmas. Throughout all of the above nonsense, Mike had his 2nd and 3rd children. Wait. Production on the film and record together only lasted about 10 months. How is that possible? Well, there is a lot going on in Monkeyland right now. As for the album, Jack Nicholson was somehow the guy who took over production. I have no idea why. According to Criterion Cast, the structure of the soundtrack was inspired by Frank Zappa's Lumpy Gravy. Carole King's As We Go Along was the last song completed during film production. Carole provided the guide vocal for Mickey and the session musicians to work with, as the tempo was a little tricky. Remember, click tracks didn't exist in 1968.
I am the f***ing click.
Ry Cooder and Neil Young dropped by to play some guitar. On July 25th, War Chant is finally recorded. It's the Monkees' first time in a studio all at once in like a year, and the last time they'll all be in a studio together for almost 20 years. And they're all joking around so much that Jack is tearing his hair out behind the board trying to get everybody to focus. It took 24 takes to get the damn thing right. It was Jack's idea to speed it up and slow it down in post. You can only hear it on the album, not in the film, not on streaming services. While the Monkees were on tour in Japan, Ken Thorne composed and conducted the film's incidental music, like the strings in the closing credits. This was recorded at Goldwyn Studio. Last but most certainly not least, Head premieres on November 6th at Columbia Studios in New York City, notably not a theater. They went out to promote the movie via slapping Monkees stickers all over the city in a lapse of judgment that honestly reads like a Monkees bit. Bob distracted one of New York's finest while Jack tried to get a sticker on the back of his helmet. As if by divine comedic timing, the cop sees something out of the corner of his eye, turns his head, and gets slapped in the face with a monkey sticker.
Hey, Mickey, will you please be careful?
Don't worry, I'll be careful.
Jack got them both arrested. However, did they make a movie of Head? It seems the making of Head wasn't that far off from what the final product looks like. The track listing of Head, the album, goes as follows. Opening up side 1, we have Opening Ceremony, followed by Porpoise Song, then Diddy Diego War Chant, next Circle Sky, then Supplicio, followed by Can You Dig It, and side 1 closes with Gravy. Opening up side 2, we have Superstitious, followed by As We Go Along, then Dandruff, next Daddy's Song, then Pole, followed by Long Title Do I Have to Do This All Over Again, and the album closes with Swami plus Strings. Head was released in November of 1968. The film grossed a whopping $16,111, about $145,160 today. $145,160 was to be made on a production that would cost $8 million. Head is one of the worst flops in United States box office history. It went so badly, the UK release was cancelled altogether. The film wouldn't be shown until a festival in 1977. As for the album, not only was it the first Monkees release to miss out on the top 10, remember, it missed out on the top 40 altogether. Head peaked at number 45 on the Billboard Hot 100 albums chart. For context, the Birds, the Bees, and the Monkees peaked at number 3 in April. This is a huge drop. The promo singles similarly floundered. According to Peter, quote, Porpoise Song just died. It went straight to the bottom with a bullet. It peaked at number 62 on the singles charts. As We Go Along was the Monkees' first single to miss out on the top 100 altogether. The two most cited reasons both heads flopped are bad marketing and bad reviews. Bad marketing? Oh, absolutely. The full-page New York Times ad for Head only ran the night before its premiere. It was just a picture of John Brockman with the word Head in the corner. Apparently, this was Bob's strategy to get non-Monkees fans to see the film, but I don't think this is getting anyone hyped for the film. This is vague beyond the point of intrigue. Most trailers were similarly vague. They would just feature sound collages like we hear on the record. Exactly one trailer featured the war chant. According to Peter, this abysmal marketing technique was Bob and Bert trying to bury Head after the day one strike soured their relationship with the guys. It's worth noting that this is coming from Peter, the only Monkee who didn't strike. In hindsight, Bob realized this marketing strategy was a major misstep. It did the exact opposite of what he was trying to do, which was break the Monkees out of their boy band box. He called the project, quote, a total disaster on every level. I couldn't understand how people couldn't see past the Monkees. That was what the movie was about. As for the accepted narrative that Head was universally slaughtered by critics, upon doing the research, I found that it wasn't quite so cut and dry. Yes, Head got bad reviews. See Renata Adler's infamous piece in the New York Times. But here's an excerpt from William Wolfe, who wrote about Head in the very same production. Quote, I was delighted at seeing the extent of creative musicality inherent in Head. There is a mountain of creativity adding up to mod impressionism. Using sight and sound to the hilt with great freedom of form, director Bob Rafelson manages to convey the frayed existence of the Monkees. Sudden fame, hilarious escapades, their unreal world in the midst of misery everywhere in the real one, and sometimes the feeling of everything closing in. June Ferris for NME was fair too. Quote, the film is fairly good and quite entertaining, even if it has been released a little late in the Monkees' career. The Motion Picture Herald described it as a marijuana film and praised all 6 original songs, with highest marks going to Porpoise Song. Kevin Thomas of the LA Times said, quote, along with Yellow Submarine, Head is one of the year's most imaginative movies. He appreciated how the Monkees weren't so much playing the Monkees, you know,
here I come, walking down the street. I get the funniest looks from all the people I meet. I am a monkey.
It seemed they got to play a little more of themselves. Of all the negative reviews I read, this one interested me the most. It's from the LA Herald Examiner, and it calls out Raybert Productions directly. Quote, it is perhaps unseemly to spend so much effort mocking the 4 youngsters whom they exploited to get rich. So critical response, you really get the whole spectrum, but what about the public? Head alienated the counterculture it was supposed to appeal to simply by who made it. It alienated Monkees fans as well. Not long after the film's release, Mickey was spotted at the car wash by a young fan. She came up to him with tears in her eyes, saying, "How could you promote war like that by showing that guy being killed?" Mickey was completely bamboozled. We know that was the exact opposite of what Head was trying to do. Overall, it seems Head did both too much too soon and too little too late. Nevertheless, production immediately begins on the 33 1/3 revolutions per monkey special, a part of contractual obligations with NBC in lieu of a third season of the show. Production was a disaster, marked by yet another strike, this time by the workers' union. After 33 1/3, Peter uses most of the money he's got to buy out his contract. He is the first monkey to quit. Head was/is, in a lot of ways, seen as the end of the Monkees. How intentional of an end that was is up to you. Interestingly enough, the telegram in the apartment scene reads December 31st, 1968, the day after Peter left. Around the time of the big Monkees resurgence that happened around the 80s with Nickelodeon airing reruns, Head gained the reputation of cult classic. How did the Monkees themselves feel after all was said and done? Well, Davey said Head was a mistake. In the Blu-ray release commentary, Mickey said, quote, "Some of the film's references make it sound like we felt like we were in prison. I can't speak for the other guys, but I certainly never felt like I was in prison with the Monkees. I was thrilled with the adulation and the fun." Mike added, quote, "I don't think we were victimized any more than the people who were on old Hollywood contracts. We were a product of the machine. The machine spat us out. But I didn't feel any loss from that because it wasn't like they were victimizing me. They were victimizing Mike the Monkey. They could do what they liked with him as far as I was concerned." So, what do I think of Head? Going in, where do I even start? You could start watching Head at any point, watch it all the way through and back to where you started, and you'd be watching pretty much the same movie. I won't lie to you guys, there are entire chunks of this movie that still evade me even after 4 watches. Mickey and the Coke machine, the birthday party, the dream sequence within a dream sequence, they're entirely incomprehensible. From what I could gather, for whatever that's worth, Head is a commentary on the cyclical nature of stardom, running the hamster wheel until it gets too fast and spits you out. Thus, the film is structured like a circle. It begins and ends with Mickey jumping off the bridge. To begin with, the stars of the show are Mickey and Davey. They were the best prepared actors and got extended scenes to reflect that, just like in the core show. Mickey's best scenes, by a long shot, are when he gets to do what he's best at, physical comedy. Seeing him flailing about in the trench pretending to get shot, falling down the hill, or practically climbing up the Coke machine in the desert. In the on-screen group dynamic, he always played best with Mike. It's the classic odd couple thing. Sticking the most out there guy next to the one who plays it straight will literally always be funny. I'm not generally the biggest Davy Jones fan. I think it's because his target audience was 8 to 14-year-old girls who were that age in the mid to late 1960s. I am 25 years old in our year of the Lord 2024. However, even I have to give Davy props for Daddy's song. Fun fact, this was supposed to be a Mike number, but after hearing Mike's recorded version of the song, Bob felt Davy was better suited. He was more of a, quote, song and dance man. Mike totally agreed, saying about the number, quote, "For me, it was an aspiration. For him, it was a vocation. Daddy's Song is the most theatrical number in the film. If Head was some kind of wacko Broadway production, this scene would no doubt translate the best. Davy's dance partner is Head's choreographer and future Hey Mickey hitmaker Tony Basil. Like the As We Go Along sequence, the a cappella bit in Daddy's Song, sang live with audible studio echo, is a necessary ground wire, a bid for the audience's emotions. The least prepared actor was Mike, and he admitted as much. At the time of Head's production, his only understanding of how movies really worked at the time were A Hard Day's Night and Help, which is incredible to me, seeing as this is the guy who went on to be the pioneer of the music video as we know it today. Here's a quote from my best friend Jack's commentary on the Head commentary track. Quote, "If there's one thing to know about Mike in this film, it's that he just didn't get it. Not because he wasn't bothered or because he wasn't interested in being a monkey anymore, but because his cinema experience was so low that he just didn't know what was going on anytime, anywhere." And there's something so refreshing about that. Mike had no experience in character acting. That's why he worked as a monkey. He was subtly funny. He could just stand there and be funny.
Get the funniest looks from all the people I...
The only moment in Head that made me burst out laughing the way I do at the show was the color guard scene. Because A, at this point, why the hell not? And B, Mike flailing in the background. It's such a blink and you'll miss it moment, that which Head is full of. See Mickey getting accidentally backhanded by a dancer and Can You Dig It? He holds his nose for a solid few seconds in genuine pain, then carries on like the true professional and gentleman he is. Anyway, having the context of Mike's experience level explains his flat portrayal of the crime boss in the boxing scene. He's aloof not because he's apathetic, but because he has no idea how to play the part of a crime boss. This also makes the sunglass tilt in Can You Dig It so much funnier. He wasn't hamming it up for the camera, he was just like that. I did not expect Peter's performance to catch my eye. In a lot of ways, Head was set up to be his redemption arc. Part of the reason he was so unhappy as a monkey is because he was the only guy who couldn't really play himself. Mickey got to be the super animated jokester. Mike got to be the straight man. Davy got to be the star. Peter was an understated, though no less capable writer and folk musician with big ideas about the world. And he had to be the dumb blonde.
Peter, please come on.
Talk about the short end of the motherfucking stick. Head makes serious moves to dismantle that persona. Seeing him dressed how he normally dress, getting to act a little less like an idiot, made me root for him. Giving him the guru monologue was a little heavy-handed though. I got the idea just fine by the fourth wall break after him hitting the waitress. That's one of my favorite scenes in the film. It does a lot to humanize the guy. Speaking of the way Peter dressed, I haven't gotten the chance to talk about costuming in film yet, seeing as the past 3 I've covered were either animated features or documentaries. Costuming does a lot of legwork in Head. When the Monkees are meant to be a manufactured product, they wear matching outfits. See the white jumpsuits of the factory scene, or the all-white stage getup of Circle Sky. Side note, I love Mickey's brocade jacket. That is gorgeous fabric. When the guys go off to have escapades of their own, they wear something a little more in line with their real-life senses of style. I feel Peter benefited the most from the individualized get-ups, but Mike was a close second. Not just because he could rock a suede fringe jacket like no one else. What can I say? The man had the shoulders for it. His signature aviator sunglasses become a comedic device in the trench scene and Can You Dig It? Many a critic over the past 56 years have bitched and moaned over Head's apparent plotlessness. Dare I say, the utter chaos is its greatest strength. See what I believe to be the greatest sequence in the film, War Chant through Circle Sky. War Chant in and of itself was a genius move for a film like this. It lays out everything that's about to happen quite plainly for the viewer. It lulls you into a false sense of security, conjuring up images of typical monkey shenanigans, and then... Okay. I'd seen this footage before, you can thank my war vet high school history teacher for that. I knew this was going to be in the film, but I didn't know it would be presented like this. I see how this would horrify and confuse audiences upon release. It's especially jarring placed alongside scenes of Mike chewing bubblegum in the trenches, Peter on the cover of Life magazine, and Mickey wearing a gilded football helmet. It really drives home the point that we were shipping boys fresh out of high school to go fight a rich man's war. Rich man's war, and a lot of these boys did not come home. I get what Bob, the editors, and the Monkees were trying to do with Circle Sky. Seeing atrocity spliced into teen girl insanity, you become numb to it. Mike seems numb to it too. Though his vocals were dubbed in later, he sounds entirely done with this production. Cap the whole thing off with mannequins of the guys being torn apart by crazed girls like a hard day's night gone to hell. They're not explicitly saying war is hell and the pop stardom machine is a means for distraction, but the implication is pretty damn strong. With our social media algorithms showing us the horrors of war in between $500 Shein hauls and influencers complaining about whatever, no doubt this sequence from Head has aged the best. What makes scenes like this, and for the most part, the other bizarre shit happening in Head work, it's the edit. What I think a lot of YouTube film critics analyzing Head have forgotten is this thing was made in 1968. Digital editing, like what I've done for you today, did not exist. You had to manually cut together hours worth of footage right down to the frame. Clearly Circle Sky is my personal favorite, but objectively the best edited scene is Daddy's song. These are frame by frame manual cuts. Mike Posen deserves a retrospective Oscar for this scene alone. Davey and Tony's alternating black and white costumes make it all the more dazzling. Expert editing is not a fix-all, however, it might even impede Can You Dig It? There are no straight shots of the choreography Tony Basil worked so hard on, or the lavish glittering costumes that surely cost production an arm and a leg. We don't really get to experience the beauty and allure this fantasy scene is supposed to convey. Head's Achilles heel is not its plotlessness, it's not exactly its dialogue, it's the pacing. This thing fares well through Daddy's song. Do I have to do this all over again grows on me the more times I watch, and then it all goes to amorphous shit until the last 10 minutes. My interest drops off sharp around the sauna scene. Even the finale could have been condensed down by half. Once this thing gets too big for itself, it fails. It does manage to scrape itself together just in time for the ending, after we've come full circle with the bridge chase scene. One last expert edit places the guys in an aquarium tank. They're driven off to the back of a warehouse, presumably for further harking and gawking at. Since this is a movie musical, the soundtrack obviously plays a huge role in the... So, what do I think of Head, the album? To answer the question I posed a couple chapters back, we really can't talk about how Head's soundtrack complements the plot because there just kinda isn't one. Instead, I get to talk about something way cooler. If you think about it, Head is just a series of music videos stitched together with various incidental scenes to varying degrees of success. Head the album is an interesting case. The songs dictate the film's plot, but the album reflects the film's structure. Yet at the same time, Head the album is an independent creative experience. That's because Jack Nicholson constructed all new sound collage interludes out of samples from the film's dialogue. Plus, a line that didn't make it into the final cut. If you've seen Head 4 times this week, like I have, you might notice the line "to experience the now without preconception or belief" isn't in the movie. Of the 3 sound collages on this album, Opening Ceremony works the best. It's like Head's wacky overture and sets the atmosphere. However, the streaming service version doesn't flow directly into Porpoise Song. This is perhaps the greatest pitfall of streaming the full album. You don't get that smooth segue. It's important to have to set the mood. Mood is what an overture should do. Mickey thinks Porpoise Song is one of the greatest rock and roll songs of all time. I don't know if my praise goes that far, but it is pretty good. Porpoise was one of the most complex songs the Monkees ever recorded, between the faraway guitar, piano, and organ, strings, and whatever the hell this is. The lyrics are a bunch of surreal junk, but Mickey and Davey sound great singing it. I think all these singers had the writers they were supposed to have. Carole King songs suit Mickey's androgynous voice. Davey on harmony vocals soars on this thing. Any and all lyrical meaning absolutely takes a backseat to the atmosphere. The organ is completely untethered, wavy electric guitar effects. Bells and strings adding a sort of across-the-universe-esque spacey drama. The organ crescendo at the end is interdimensional. I love this song. War Chant is the closest thing we've got to Head's thesis statement. According to Davey, it's, quote, kinda like white rap. Silly Davey, that's what Tally Hall is for. I know there are some youngins in my audience more familiar with this band than the Monkees. If you are a Tally Hall fan, go watch the Monkees TV show. It is the blueprint for the Tally Hall internet show, and you will love it.
Is it natural ketchup? Yeah!
Bob and Jack wrote War Chant as a spoof of the Monkees TV show theme and the guys' monkey act overall, just pandering to their kid audience. Like the scene it's in, the chant lays out how the film will go down. When you see the end in sight, the beginning may arrive. You say we're manufactured, to that we all agree, so make your choice and we'll rejoice in never being free. In the moment, this was meant as a commentary on the general trappings of fame, but in hindsight, it reads as kind of a weird self-fulfilling prophecy. Storied as their solo careers were, the guys never could quite escape the long shadow the Monkees cast. For some reason, the live version of Circle Sky we hear in the film wasn't officially released until 1990. Mike wasn't sure why the live track was replaced on the soundtrack, and neither am I. He thought it had a sense of urgency. I just don't hear it. I like the apparent apathy in his voice and how prominent the bass is in the mix. Nonetheless, of course I like Circle Sky. Are you friggin' kidding me? It was my bumper theme for over half this show's history. This is a killer riff. This song sounds like it's all spiraling out of control, which it absolutely is. Like cracking open a bottle of beer at the end of the world. Barely audible lyrics with images of wingtip smiles and a circle sky that tells lies. The crux of it all is in the bridge. It's a very extraordinary scene to those who don't understand, but what you have seen you must believe if you can. Our eyes are open, and there's no going back. Quiet, isn't it, George Michael Dolans? After a brief interlude from Mickey's desert scene, we have Can You Dig It? I have to say this one fares better outside the context of the film. The scene with the harem is a little too on the nose for hand drums, finger cymbals, classical guitar flourishes. Can You Dig It is absolutely of its time and the free-spirited Laurel Canyon crew that Peter flew with. A couple more brief interludes on the end of the A-side and beginning of the B B-side, adding up to all of 11 seconds, lead us into As We Go Along. It is criminal that Peter's entire diner scene was cut down to just 11 seconds. Justice for my man Peter! A quick note about As We Go Along before I review it. It seems that there were as many mixes of the damn song made as there were copies of the record. Anyway, this might just be the Monkees' best song. I heard somewhere that Mickey wasn't a fan of his voice, which is wild because I think he was the best singer of the bunch. His delivery is so sweet, earnest, and high-flying that for a long time I thought the Monkees had some uncredited female guest singer do it. You shouldn't be shy, for I'm not gonna try to hurt you or heal you or steal your star. As We Go Along is an aching, yearning, but hopeful tune. The gentle acoustic guitars, and frankly adorable flute. Over waltz time would be enough to make me teary-eyed, never mind the ascending keys. It's difficult to soar through a chorus like that while retaining intimacy, and Mickey did it. I'm having a lot of trouble articulating why, but I just feel this is one of the greatest pop songs of the 1960s. Count on Carole King to understand the assignment. Insert the dandruff bit here. Daddy's Song is the most classically theatrical song here. Very Broadway, or West End, I should say. Having heard Mike's tracking vocal,
We used to walk beside the sea, and he told me how life would be when I grew up to be a man.
I'm conflicted. Harry Nilsson literally wrote this song for Mike. It's the story of Mike's early life. But the vibe is completely different with him on vocals. It's more Magnolia Sims or a Paul McCartney granny song. Even though I'm not the biggest Davy fan, his acting chops were well suited for something as theatrical as this. When I fell and hurt my knee makes me laugh every time, and I literally do not know why. It's goofy, okay? Daddy's Song is even more heart-wrenching when you consider who wrote it. Harry Nilsson's father was absent, and as so often happens in the cycle of absent parents, Harry himself would be a largely absent figure in his eldest son's life. I'm jumping ahead a little bit to cover Do I Have to Do This All Over Again? Considering the ordeal it was to arrange and record, that title takes on a whole new meaning. Of the two tunes Peter contributed, this is my favorite, with creative, unexpected hand-clapping time changes, a driving beat, really cool guitar parts, and self-aware lyrics. This is a rocker. There is a universe in which Stephen Stills was a monkey, and Do I Have to Do This All Over Again was a Crosby, Torque, and Nash single with killer harmonies. It's no surprise that the album falls apart at the exact same point the film does. The pole sound collage is entirely unnecessary. I get it was an attempt to condense the film into a 30-something minute album package, but it reads as self-indulgence from Jack. Here's all the lines I wrote that I really liked, and I'm gonna shoehorn them onto this record. If something sticks out on an album full of oddballs, that's not good! Swami Strings gets a little weird in this aspect too. If it had just been the Guru monologue, a Porpoise song reprise, and the end credits theme, it would have been a whole lot more effective. Nevertheless, after really paying attention to what is being said through the songs and the interludes, I'm left with a pit in my stomach after the final organ crescendo. I feel complicit in the destruction of the Monkees. I feel guilt. Head is a real head scratcher. Even today, I don't think we'll ever 100% make sense of this thing, and by transitive property, this thing. Both are deeply, critically flawed. In terms of delivering its core message, it can't get out of its own way. At times, it's preoccupied with being weird for weird's sake, but the ensemble cast is fun, the editing and costuming is fantastic, and the musical sequences are integrated well. Ironically, they are better integrated in the film than they are on the record. As for Head the album, if you're willing to sort through some clumsy, hopelessly 1968 sound collages, you'll find find traces of four guys coming into their own, one with a sense of urgency and need to forge ahead wherever strange places it may lead him, one coming into his own as a musician, thriving in the Laurel Canyon hippie rock scene, and two who've hit peak performance, shining their spotlights onto gems from two up-and-coming songwriters. On screen and on disc, the guys committed to the bit. That's what the Monkees always did best, and in a way, what Vinyl Monday does best. I am nothing if not committed to the motherfucking bit. In doing so, do I confuse the hell out of people? Yes. Do I sacrifice some of my comfort and my dignity? I spent half this episode dressed as a character from a children's show from 1966 wearing a wool hat in the summer, so yes. In retaining this sense of fun, do I sacrifice some of my legitimacy? Yeah, probably. In doing so, do I sacrifice some of my peace? Yes. Did I know I was signing up for these things 99 episodes ago? No. What will this show look like in 100 episodes? What will I be like in 100 episodes? I don't know. At this rate, we could probably make a Circle Sky cover and music video happen for episode 200, but you don't know until you're in it. Life starts to feel like fractured highlights from a whack-ass marijuana movie, and a career starts to look like a sitcom. But as the sitcom is an art I've always appreciated. This is my sitcom. And I'm gonna keep performing until I hear the fucking laugh track. At times, the performance can feel like an endurance test, but if you're willing to suspend your disbelief, it's a masterclass in absurdist comedy. Head is an acquired taste and very much an artifact of its time. Head the album is just the same. But some way, somehow, Head was wildly ahead of its time. It's a very extraordinary scene for those who don't understand. My personal favorites off this one are Porpoise Song, Circle Sky, As We Go Along, and Do I Have to Do This All Over Again. Remember, if you want to keep up with all of my favorites from all of the Vinyl Mondays, I have a Spotify playlist linked in my description. I update it every week. My description is also where you can find the links to my podcast. This past episode was my first time in the writer's chair. I wrote an episode about the acid queen herself, Grace Slick. We hope you enjoy. And that's it. That is Vinyl Monday, episode 100. That was Head by the Monkees. Firstly, I want to thank the biggest Monkees fan I know, my best friend Jack. He gave me access to most of the resources I ended up using for this episode, like the books, the OG screenplay, the Blu-ray commentary track. He even gave me a play-by-play timeline of film production because he just knew that. Your loyalty, endless patience with me, and love as a friend have changed my life. Thank you for introducing me to the Monkees, and thank you for being the Mickey to my Mike. Ridiculous shit constantly befalls us, but I wouldn't want to go through that with anybody else. Thank you to fellow Monkee fan Chris McGovern for not only gifting me the main copy of Head I worked from this episode, but for the reason why you gave it to me, as a thank you for appearing on your podcast twice. Yours was the first platform I was ever on that wasn't my own before Now Dig This and Everything. Your show made me realize, hey, I could do that too, and now I am. And lastly, thank you to the viewers. Everyone outside this little box. Without your loyalty, your enthusiastic support, and your occasional headassery, Vinyl Monday would not have gotten to 100 episodes. I always told myself that I would end the show when I was no longer doing it for me. But somewhere along the way, I found that Vinyl Monday wasn't just for me. It wasn't just for you. It was for us. So, what do you think? Leave a comment letting me know. I love hearing what you guys have to say about albums that I love. And remember, despite what some guy on the internet has to say, your opinion matters. it might just matter enough to make a 100 episode series about it. If you like what I do here, you should like this video and subscribe to my channel. I post new episodes of Vinyl Monday every Monday morning at 11. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next week for... What do you mean I forgot something? There are 16 pages of notes over there. There's no way I forgot something, okay? Outro, time, episode, blah, blah, blah. What do you mean I forgot about the title? The title of this? Oh, you mean the title of the movie. What do I think of the title Head? Yeah, it fucking sucks. Changes was so much better.
Quick, suck it before the venom reaches my heart.